Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear,
business consultant.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear Business Consulting.
Welcome. I'm Jay Shear with Jay Shear Business Consulting. We build solid foundations for service-based businesses to grow and scale and achieve the results and success they deserve. And you've joined Business Minds Coffee Chat. Are you interested in passive income streams? How would you like to build an online business that can generate a six-figure income in just 12 months? Well, on today's episode, we delve into the world of e-commerce and building a brand business on Amazon. Our guest is a husband and father of four. In college, he started a side hustle in e-commerce. He dropped out in his third year and jumped into the corporate world. Since 2012, he's been launching, operating, and growing private label e-com businesses on Amazon. He's generated over $100 million in sales, has built 8 different brands, launched over 1,000 stores with his clients, and has taken multiple e-com companies to exit. Please welcome the founder and CEO of Voltage Digital Marketing, Neil Twa. Neil, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for being here today.
My pleasure, Jay. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I am thoroughly looking forward to jumping into this conversation. And as we were talking about off camera, the first conversation that we had together, not only did you open my eyes, you inspired me, but I loved your story. And so I want to share part of that story. I gave obviously some very high level points in regards to your background, but why don't you fill in some of the gaps a bit and tell us a bit more about you and some of the really great things that you've experienced, but also some of the challenges that you faced along the way to the work that you do today.
Yeah, we'll go back to the Wayback Machine for a second, right? And see how far back we take this. So once upon a time, no, I did drop out of college. It's always funny to give the context to that because it makes me sound like I'm that guy that just, hey, the surf dude just couldn't get college done and wanted to drop out. What was actually true is I skipped through high school really easy. Like high school was just a breeze for me. By the time I got to college, I'd basically gone on a music scholarship. I loved music, classical and jazz and the arts. Sciences and business and stuff were kind of secondary. And at that point, and one of the ironic things I figured out was I didn't know how to study. I actually didn't know how to really learn and apply that aspect. What I did know was I could change and adapt. And what was beautiful about at that point, the internet was coming online. It was something brand new. And there was a huge opportunity to just go in and do the work and figure out how to get it done because nobody else knew how. And at the university level, they were installing the machines and setting up the networks. But again, nobody really knew how. And so I kind of just threw myself into that and started learning what to do there. Realized I had an aptitude for it. I had a passion for the business and technology side of it. And long story short, I jumped into the corporate world because no one could literally train me on how to do it. The money was being spent in the corporate world. And so I followed the money. And as I followed the money, it got more and more interesting because businesses were going like crazy. By the time I reached Sprint as a contractor, I taught myself programming. I ended up going that direction, learning ASP, active server pages, data-driven pages. It was all a big deal. Now it's commonplace, right? Then it wasn't such an easy thing to learn. You could literally kind of taught yourself on the fly. But I got to be one of the first of the 5,000 employees moved from the contracting a local side of Sprint over to mobile PCS, and they launched the first mobile phone into the marketplace, which was an interesting time to be alive. In about 5 years, we had gone from 5,000 employees who founded the first part of that company, all kind of hodgepodge together from these different organizations and stuff. I was a contractor who got hired full-time into that position to go pick up the inside of their knowledge management website, 50,000 pages of nonsense. It was all meant to help support the customers and answer questions about the phones and this customer support channel. There was 80,000 people when I left that division after it launched in 5 years. It was just a massive hyper growth situation of mobile phones and just launching, and the consumers. And obviously, anybody who was a part of that knew that phones were coming out super fast and everybody wanted the latest and greatest, which was fun to watch from the inside. Learned a lot about business, realized my aptitude was really towards business development, sales, and marketing, and that side of the house more than the technical. And that's when I started to learn the project management side, got really good at that. And IBM came in and did a project, and one of the partners was there, and I spent about a year working with him. He said, "Hey, you know what? I want that position inside IBM. Go fly to Armonk, have an interview." I did. Literally, I walked out with a job, and I was in IBM with no degree. No degree and a whole lot of experience. I think that could still be done today. I'm not really sure because I'm not in that world anymore. But spent almost 5 years inside of IBM. Still had my side hustle, still had game servers on the side, still had e-commerce dreams and hopes of eventually making it to the point where I could kind of do my own thing full time. And in 2007, that opportunity presented itself. IBM wanted to move my division to Argentina. And I said, "No, I don't want to go to Argentina." And they said, "Well, you can take early retirement." And I'm like, "Well, I'm not really that old. I'm 30. What do I do now?" So I started my own series of management consulting firms and affiliate marketing companies and really learned the ins and outs of paid traffic and mobile traffic media. And we were literally uploading spreadsheets of products and dating apps and application installs and cost per click and CPA style offers. Where I learned how to do that on the mobile phone side of the lead generation. Before you had web interfaces and all this other stuff, we literally would just throw stuff into spreadsheets and send it into the servers and watch and see what happens as it spread across the world, and found out we got to be pretty good at that and got to really build a lot of products for people and for other companies. And had some really significant success, led to an understanding of capital raises through that process because I helped a couple of companies literally raise capital for the efforts and sales that was growth that was coming off of that traffic. So I really started learning about acquisitions, mergers, fundraising, large fundraising amounts in the millions. What an experience that was coming from the background that I was in to learn about all of that investment world and all of the opportunity that it presented itself. So long story short, as I got into the physical products world and starting to build brands and things for myself, I got introduced to Amazon through a friend of mine who had just sold some products on Amazon. And he said, "Hey, there's this thing called Amazon. You can sell on it. It's got this little business they just bought called Fulfilled by Amazon. And what they're going to try to do is make it so people can ship their products and Amazon will deliver the last mile to the customer." And I thought, well, that's pretty clever because at that point, I didn't really know anything about delivering products and creating infrastructure for the e-commerce side of the products and how to make sure it got to the customer correctly. Obviously, you know about UPS and USPS and mail and all that kind of stuff, but what to do when actually you start selling hundreds of them a day changes the game a bit. And the whole illusion of this infrastructure and customer support and everything that would automate that for me by working with Amazon was pretty sexy, pretty enticing, right? And so I got involved in that and started to just retail arbitrage products. We found some products that were lower prices. Hey, can we sell them? And yeah, they sold on Amazon. Like, great. So we shipped them more products and we found some more. And I ran into this guy who was starting to do the same thing named Reed Larson, who was like, "Hey, I'm changing directions in life. I want to learn how to do it. I'm good in logistics and operation and accounting and financial management." And I said, "Well, great, because I don't know anything about all of that. I know about marketing and sales and building websites and e-commerce, and I know about paid traffic and getting the customer avatar and figuring out who wants what." And he said, "You know what? Let's team up and see what we can do." And I said, "Awesome. Let's, you got the other half of my coin. Let's see how far we can make this." Well, 9 years later, we're still business partners. And we have got involved heavily into the brand side of Amazon, where we really learned about the intellectual property and building the trademarks and actually establishing a true customer avatar and serving that customer avatar with all kinds of products and solution-oriented products. And just kept developing new brand after brand after brand. We went from outdoor gear to kitchen to kids' toys to all over the place. And just realized that there was a particular type of formula for Amazon buyers and just kind of locked into systematizing that. And through his help with the operational stuff, we started to standardize those practices. And my help with the marketing and the pay-per-click side of Amazon, we started to really see that stuff ramp up fast. Got pretty good at it, got pretty successful at it pretty fast.
Well, clearly so. So I would love for our listeners to hear about the stats. So let's talk about the tail of the tape, if you will.
Yeah.
Can you give us some updated stats when it comes to e-com and Amazon and
The
some of the
whole
things
upper e-com.
yeah, that whole piece and
Yeah.
percentage of third-party sellers, how many are small businesses as an example, just something that we can wrap our
Yeah,
heads around.
absolutely. Well, there's a lot of stats, but let's go to the understanding of e-commerce first. And actually, let's back up just one step again and look at this from a business oriented perspective, because this is called the Business Minds coffee chat. So let's talk about the business aspect of it first, because we are business builders. During that time, I built multiple businesses in the oil and gas, high tech industry, management consulting, had teams running all over the world, delivering projects, had oil and gas projects going on. Had public and private sector projects running. And so in terms of the business, really got to understand, obviously, profit and loss, the statements, what does EBITDA actually mean to your business in terms of how you run it and operate it, what's economies of scale and different business models actually look like. All of those things kind of came into almost a perfect focus with e-commerce, at least it did for us. Okay. So we started to build those e-com companies. We just chose that e-commerce with a physical product and a virtual aspect of the online side was a really cool hybrid of two different models we both had been involved in the past. But this created, again, kind of a virtual real estate grab, which is the online space, and Amazon is just one of those places for that. And then obviously the tangible aspect of a business that has inventory. Physical inventory, when we deploy capital into that, it's inventory we own, it's inventory we can repurpose. It's not just pie in the sky, it's an asset. And so with that, we saw the opportunity to generate these businesses. So as you go forward, Amazon was kind of a metaphorically a 2-lane highway. When we got involved, it's a 7-lane highway now. They went from having 30, 40 million customers a month to over 200 million customers a month now. It's now, as of one estimate I saw earlier today, 74% of all initial product sales start researching on Amazon. There are over 2.5 million FBA sellers in the marketplace. They are 65% of those are all, from last I saw, are all small businesses like us. Wow. Those are just mom and pop shops and everyday brands who are trying to establish business. They're not just mega conglomerates. Amazon has created an ecosystem in their marketplace to allow more than 60% of the marketplace to be buyers and sellers like us. All right. People think Amazon, big corporate conglomeration, but don't realize that the major component of their .com is small businesses. So when they yell at the corporations, which we can all do, you got to remember some of those are built by the people who are within or around them, which is one of the interesting pieces of this in terms of entrepreneurialism, because it does give you the ability to create a no-name brand inside of the marketplace. Use an equation we call similarity plus familiarity equals trust. By leveraging Amazon's trust, we can create the similarity of products with familiarity of brand and actually take a brand to market no one's ever heard of. And in 12 months or less, establish it as $1 million to multi-million-dollar business because of that ecosystem, which is where this gets really cool. In terms of additional numbers, I mean, the stats can go on and on. More than 45% of the sellers work from home. So they have no operational outside the home. They are operationally independent for the most part. They use and leverage that fulfilled by Amazon, or what's called FBA infrastructure, to deliver the products. Many of them do not even warehouse them at their houses. They use third-party or 3PL logistics companies, where the products will be intermediary between any other manufacturing around the world, even before they hit Amazon's warehouses or getting shipped directly to Amazon's warehouses to store those products. So it creates an economy of scale with this business model, unlike anything I'd ever experienced previously. We had done some wholesale flipping of products, pallet stuff, kind of an arbitration model. Many have heard of that or even consider those types of models. Very point blank, it's against Amazon's terms of service. It's even more so now than it was 5 years ago when we did this. It was a very gray area then, but now it's pretty black and white that we don't want people to do that. But we had ramped it up to 20,000 square foot of warehouse space. We had 12 employees and we were running 10 trucks a week. So we had built it to what I would say is close to a mid-sized business level, moving trucks and products in a wholesale palletized format. That was not a private label format. We were selling other people's brands. I started working about 80 hours a week and all the other problems that came with that. So that didn't last very long. It lasted about 18 months.
What type of products were you involved in?
Anything and everything, as long as it met a profit requirement, from shoes to clothes to electronics to gadgets to outdoor gear to home and kitchen supplies. It literally mattered only if we could attach our product that we had to the original brand owner inside of Amazon and sell that product for a profit. So that was basic arbitration. What we found out, though, is by the time we got to sell those products, when you thought you had 10 or 12 or $15 in profit, by the time you actually got to the little bit of race to the bottom pricing, you might have sold it for $3 to $8. So the profit margins were dropped very fast based on competition and software repricing tools. And it got to be very complex and kind of a race to the bottom business model, as it turns out.
And you're working 80 hours a week.
And we were working way too much.
Very thin margins.
Yeah. And it ended up being like 7% net margin. We're like, that isn't going to cut it, because we had private label brands that were doing 20 to 30% net margins in the business. And I thought, wow, okay, so this was a diversion. Call it a learning lesson and call it a reinvention, if you will, of doing that business. But you have to try these things sometimes as business owners. People could tell you, hey, don't do that. That's dumb. But then you have to go try it yourself to find out just how dumb it actually is.
Sure. Well, I want to talk about price point here in just a couple of moments, because obviously that's an important factor, knowing your numbers, right?
Yes.
But I also, for those who may not be aware, and look, this is an area where I haven't had much exposure to, so I'm learning as I go. I've learned a lot from you, and I'll continue to learn through this conversation. But talk about the different ways that people who are interested in doing business on Amazon, being an Amazon seller, what are the different methodologies or the different ways that you can do business on Amazon?
So there is arbitrage in a number of formats. That could be a book or a product level arbitrage. In essence, it's buy low, sell high. I found someone else's product for $3 on Amazon. It says I can sell it for 19. There is the FBM, or fulfilled by merchant version of that, in which I'm going to ship the product once the order comes through, meeting Amazon's criteria, so my account stays in good health. Or there's the FBA version of that kind of wholesale palletization, where I'm going to ship those products into Amazon, attach them to the original brand owner's listings, and reprice it until I make my profit and sell that unit and then move it out. That's kind of a wholesale or a wholesaling FBA model. Those are the additional types of methodologies. There's the final one, which we call private label, which is PL. It's an industry standard of branding for any type of product. It just happens to be a little bit of a more complexity in the setup, but not necessarily in the long-term running, scaling, or profitability of the business. In fact, it outpaces all the others. They can profit quicker because you can find a product and flip it. Go down to your local retail store, and retail arbitrage shopping is one of them. You'll go down to Walmart and find something for $3 on clearance and flip it for, $20 on Amazon. There's even models of business that show how to do that. But once again, Amazon is not finding that they like people doing that. It's against their terms of service, and they're really moving to shut it down. So the really most powerful one on Amazon in terms of growing a company is to stay private label, to keep a business-oriented focus to it, not a side hustle or a hobby, which is kind of where those other ones go. And to build the intellectual property that creates an asset-driven model, really, at the end of the day. It's a brand registration within Amazon to say, hey, I'm a legitimate brand. I'm a company. I got a website. I'm a real boy, if you will.
Sure.
And to get the brand intellectual trademarks and property to go with that for seller protection outside the system, even inside the system, frankly, from nefarious other brands and activities. They can create problems. That's some of the cons I'm sure we'll talk about here in a minute.
Absolutely.
To those. But private label creates a company that's sellable. It creates an asset-driven model that is something others will, and myself will, want to purchase later on. Brand assets. We do not want to purchase wholesale drop shipping retail arbitrage models, because they create jobs, not what we're looking for here. And that sounds really weird when I say it that way, doesn't it?
It does, but it makes perfect sense.
Not creating a job for the owner, more specifically.
Right. There you go. So if I'm just a everyday consumer, I go onto Amazon and I'm looking for a particular product, whether it's a pair of shoes, you name it, whatever it is, I find my product that I'm looking for. Would I know what type of seller is selling that product to me that I'm interested in? So would I know if it's an FBA type model? How would I tell?
Well, there's different levels of sellers and different levels of buyers, right? As we've talked about the different levels of sellers, let's talk about the different levels of buyers. There's levels of buyers who are looking for certain criteria. Maybe you're one of them, or your wife is one of them. And so I'm looking for the prime at the right price point with the best reviews, so that it's delivered to my house in 2 days, or even one day if I'm in a local city, or maybe even an hour if I'm in a really inner side of the city where they have hour delivery now. You're looking at the different levels of that consumer, and that consumer might not necessarily be paying attention when they're buying to who's actually selling it, because there's that trust relationship. They kind of really believe at the end of the day, Amazon is selling that product, even if they didn't realize that the seller name is a different company. It actually shows ships by and fulfilled by right on the site. And the consumers are getting a lot more savvy nowadays about figuring that out. But many, especially on the mobile side, it's not as easy to identify that as quickly. And mobile is quickly becoming the fastest way people are buying on Amazon now. And so they don't identify that as much as they identify it being Prime. And it's from Amazon. And so they don't necessarily tell. If they're looking in very price sensitive type of consumer, and they're going to click in and say, where's the other lower cost, not necessarily new, but like new products, it's actually going to show you more easily who's selling that product. And you can more quickly determine that it's not Amazon directly selling it to you. It's another third party selling it to you.
Okay.
And so you can kind of see that differentiation, and it really gets down to some of the sophistications and the solution oriented aspect of what the customer is going for. And what they're willing to buy. Now, when they get the products, that's a different story. When they get the products, obviously, you're going to have brand packaging and other things that are going to quickly identify the kind of product you got and who you got it from. You're going to open it up potentially, and it's going to have inserts in it that tell you, hey, this was sold by XYZ company. And some people may look at that and go, oh, I thought that was Amazon. It's not. Not even aware, right? That there are some of those negatives in there a little bit that are happening with some of that for consumers. And it's a little bit of gotcha for Amazon. So they're fighting back right now. Due to the amount of overwhelming Chinese sellers who have come into the platform in the last 20 months. What had ended up happening was, due to a lot of the fallout from COVID, many of the sellers we talked about a minute ago, who are the sellers on the platform, ran out of inventory. Couldn't get it shipped, sold it too fast. We had a huge amount of growth during this last 20 months of people coming online due to restrictions everywhere, of course. They couldn't get to it, so they had to start buying. Many people who were hesitant to ever buy before, like my parents, suddenly got on and started buying stuff that they didn't buy online before. What ended up happening is many of those sellers falling out could not deliver the products they were originally selling from the manufacturers overseas, specifically China. And so what China did in that instance is the manufacturers, in response to that problem, started taking the products and listing it themselves on Amazon. And when they suddenly realized, well, hey, I don't need it in my warehouse in Shenzhen, I can have that all sent to Amazon's warehouse. So then they started to just throw in as much product as possible into Amazon's warehouses and infrastructures, causing a major problem for them. And because of that, they started to play in the system. They did a lot of nefarious black hat tactics. And in fact, 200,000 of them got caught about 3 months ago in a security audit that identified over 200,000 Chinese sellers that were booted out of the system because they were playing with black hat tactics. They were review manipulations. They were buyer network groups. They were doing anything they could to manipulate the system. And it was creating a brand problem because the products, as you looked at the images and you said, hey, I'm getting this brand new, XYZ product from Amazon, this widget, and it's got these beautiful pictures and stuff, and it looks really great. It shows up in a plain looking box with Chinese language all over it. And you're like, what is this? And you open it up and it's the product you order, but it looks nothing like the box or any of the materials that you actually saw. Customers started to revolt against that a bit, causing a bit of customer problem for Amazon. And in response, Amazon has kind of gone to war. They closed another 50,000 seller accounts from Chinese sellers last month. They have now put in a liability insurance requirement of $10,000 in sales within the first 30 days. You must have that online and must have a US-based policy in order to hold that. And then they kicked another 5,000 out yesterday for fake review scams. So again, they went to war and booted out about almost 300,000 Chinese-based manufacturing and sellers out of the system to stop them from doing this.
Incredible. Well, it's good to know that they're on top of it as best as they can, and that they're keeping their eyes on their what's happening on their site, right? And they're listening to their customer feedback clearly at the same time.
They are, and the customers are screaming. It's a big component of that trust. So with brand-driven aspect, as we started that little triad there I went under, was to a soapbox, was to basically extol the value of brands. The value of branding and trademarking and creating a great business in this system is to rise above that. It's to have customers actually identify who you are when they're going to purchase, actually look for your additional products that you're selling, and have more of a brand-driven relationship with you because the product shows up. It looks just like the one they got on the listing. The packages and everything is great. It's a good quality product. They're going to want to buy more from you. So as long as we stay up here, this is getting, we're riding this wave, right? As we have for 9 years. There has been up and downs like this before, but nothing at this magnitude of level of change as we've seen in the world economy, as well as our local economy in the United States and even local down to our states. This has been a differentiating factor. Good brands, great opportunity. In fact, there's, as I mentioned, all those sellers who disappeared and about $15.4 billion in revenue that went with them has now opened up all of that revenue opportunity to brand sellers. So many of the people we manage, many of our clients, many of people who are maybe watching this and considering getting in, it's a really good time. The wave is riding and the opportunity is growing. Bank of America and Forrester Research published a paper. You can go look at this on the economic trends up to 2030. And they have now said they estimate $21 trillion in offline assets will come to the online e-commerce world. Wow. Amazon is only selling 31% of all e-commerce sales right now. So there's a huge amount of upside for all e-com businesses. Now, why do we choose Amazon FBA? Why do we choose that channel? It's kind of an important retro question here for a second, but
sure,
it proves the brand. At the end of the day, the one thing most small businesses, well, it's not the one thing. There's 3 things that most small businesses suffer from: lack of knowledge, overcapitalization in some instances, and undercapitalization in most instances. And with the lack of knowledge and undercapitalization, they tend to go out of business. If they're overcapitalized and don't have the knowledge, they'll spend it in the wrong way and go out of business. And finally, if they don't have the right knowledge, doesn't matter how much money they have or lack of money, they're simply going to fail too. So what we look at is a combination of making sure that people understand the right go-to-market strategy, the right amount of capital to deploy, and of course, the importance of understanding the business and going, as you said earlier, by the numbers. To make sure that your product is profitable, to make sure that that builds a profitable brand, and that will all roll into a profitable P&L statement for your company. And of course, that brand is worth something more in the end than it is during any time during the business building phase. And economics 101, right? Money's worth more now than it is later.
That's right.
Yep. So we learned
exiting that business if we build the business the right way. Well, so
building it.
Yeah, so let's speak to the audience members who would be interested in starting a business on Amazon. What are the key areas that they should be focused on if they have never done this before, if they want to get started, but they don't really know what those first, second, third steps should be? What should they include in their due diligence?
First up, Amazon itself as a giant traffic center and traffic being a big component of those things I just mentioned in terms of the understanding and the knowledge of going to Amazon, as well as gaining access to that traffic. So you get, thousands of buyers to buy your product. There are particular processes and ways to do that. So it's important to actually understand that we incubate on Amazon FBA. We prove that product and brand and can do it even up to 8 figures before we ever take it into mass marketing and try to make it a household name, literally. So it's a great place to test market these products. It's a great place to test the product value, test the brand value, and as well as test the price point value. So what's important to understand about that is obviously a profitable product. What should that look like? We have a baseline minimum requirement of $12 in profit per unit. That means I'm going to get paid myself $12 for every unit that's sold. Above all that would be my cost of goods, what's called my landed cost, which is any cost of logistics and fulfillment that gets that product into the hands of the customer at the last mile while still paying me a profit. Okay. Now, what we typically see is our people will get $30 to $40 or more in profit per unit. So we target products that are $50 to $300 in retail range. We do this, and people should know about this because it seems that people get a misunderstanding. Maybe it's YouTube guru videos or whatever they're watching out there in the world. that they believe that it's a volume-based opportunity. They sell $20 products or less, but they sell thousands of them a month, and that will suddenly make all the money in the world appear. I would rather sell 500 units of something with $50 in profit than 5,000 units of something with $5 in profit. The logistics, the overhead, the cost, and the management of that scale is way different in terms of its profitability and the ability for economies of scale to truly grow with this business model. So when you're looking for the opportunity of Amazon in business, you should really make sure you focus on the right type of products that do require a solution-oriented aspect that meets that requirement. What's an example of that? It would be the difference between me buying a $29 cheap Chinese bike seat that's going to rumble and jumble my goodies, and it's supposed to the gel padded super one that's $89 that I'll ride up the back and downside of Pikes Peak because it's got the little hole, the cooling gel pads, and it doesn't munch my goodies. That's a whole different person. Okay. And that's a different solution oriented person. Why? Because that person who's spending $89 on the bike seat, and believe me, there's millions of them that will do that, also wants the higher end panniers, right? They want the better brakes. They also want the higher end lights. They want the better pads. They want the better gear. They want the better helmet. They want about 50 different other items. You can sell them in that brand for $50 to $300 when you're hitting a solution oriented aspect for that particular person. Okay. And so it's the same analogy I've given before, but it's like the dentist. Okay. You've got an abscess tooth, your tooth, you're hurting really bad. You can't sleep at night. It's just terrible. You call the doctor and he says, hey, you know what? I can give you that solution in about an hour and it'll cost you $300. And you're thinking, okay, I can't wait another hour for this. This is super painful. I'm dying. I waited 3 days already too far. And this is like the end of the road. Okay. Well, I can get you in the next 10 minutes for $500. You're like, done, sold, $500. I'm in. Let's get this done. 10 minutes and I'm out. There's a whole group of people willing to pay the $500 for the 10-minute solution, right? There's the mindset, though, is many in business think, well, I need to get the $300 to hit the masses and create the 1 hour solution. But we go a different direction with this. All right. We go after more of the high end affinity group of people and create the higher profit margins. That supports the marketing. That supports the business. And of course, it supports us for a good profit. It also creates a great solution-oriented high-end product for the consumer who's very happy with our products. So when you take that and you go a different direction, you should very much be considering your customer avatar is what I'm really getting down to, that profile of that person. We have an exercise people go through in the first 21 days of identifying 500 products that fit within this particular avatar. People think, well, that's a lot. That's crazy. I can't even think of what the hell I'd sell right now one of those things. But as we unlock that, as we train their brains, we help them see different things in their urban environment. Suddenly they start to realize that there's products all around them. They've been buying them. They just didn't understand. They are maybe the solution oriented aspect person themselves, but never really stopped to think about it from that angle. And all of a sudden the products start to appear everywhere. Like white cars. They just sort of show up everywhere.
Exactly. Once we're aware of it, right?
You're aware of it,
we start to see it everywhere.
Yeah. And once you apply the right metrics of numbers, then the products actually start to show themselves as an opportunity. Excellent.
So let's talk about the pros and cons of selling on Amazon.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've touched on a couple things here, but let's go ahead and give some clarity around that so our listeners understand what they're dealing with as they start to assess whether this is a good direction for them or for those that are already selling on Amazon. What can they expect?
Yeah. So some of the cons on Amazon, we talked a little bit about that. I'm going to start with that first, because if I start with the pros, it always sounds like I'm trying to make this a bigger deal than it is. When I really want people to understand true reality of the business model of e-commerce, and just happens to be nuanced by the fact that we utilize Amazon's system to do last mile. You can have e-commerce on Shopify, WooCommerce, or any kind of website and deal with other types of logistics and issues of management and other capacities. That are all either considered to be, I get to do them or I have to do them. In my homeschool group here with my family, it is you get to do these things. You never have to do anything. You choose to do it. So you get to do these things. Okay. And there are pros and cons to all of that. Now, some of the cons with Amazon are if they decide one day on their infinite wisdom to shut you down, then they can just shut you down. Right. You're gone. And no different than, say, Zoom decides to cancel this and you can no longer host your podcast here. No different than your website provider just saying, hey, one day, we listened to one of your podcasts and didn't like what you had to say. We shut you down. So there's anybody riding on a platform out here is going to have that as a con ultimately, because we don't control the platform. All right. So Amazon is in control. Now we play within their terms of service. We play as a correct business. We set ourselves up as a business so that we have a defense mechanism in place to address those kinds of issues. Now, in 9 years, I've never lost an account that was ours directly. We lost one account indirectly because a customer lost theirs and we were attached to it. Thankfully, it was an account that really wasn't doing anything. The way that you can run with Amazon as a brand ensures that if you go by their compliance and ensure you go through their checklists of doing things for their registrations and stuff, you are going to be just fine, right? Now, you're going to run into some potential issues with product listings, hijackers, claims of fraud from other sellers who are doing black hat nefarious things, who might want to shut you down. A Chinese seller group who goes out and opens 5 other business accounts just to go attack their competitors and shut them down, right? So that was some of the tactics that have been deployed. Or fake reviews. We had a supplement company that we owned in the past. And one of the cons with the review process currently with Amazon, to be careful with it, is if you get exposed to certain industries, let's say, who do not want you tampering or stepping on their sales, they have mechanisms to deploy where you can wake up one day and there's 100, 1,000 negative reviews on your product. And you're like, where in the world did that come from? Because that happened to us. And so Amazon was able to remove that once we connected with them. But for a time, that was a pretty big deal. All of a sudden, like, where did all these negative reviews come from? They were a competitor who was going to try to undercut us, right? And shut us down. So those are some of the cons in the systems, right? And there's a little bit of a play with what's called their seller performance division, where it's we jokingly call it kind of the black hole of the organization, because all listings inside the system and management stuff have to be approved through seller performance. If you run into claim and what's called A to Z fraud claims or any of these kinds of claims based on how you're selling in the system, you have to work through that team in order to resolve any of those issues. And that can be a little bit frustrating if you don't know how to do it. It can be very time consuming if you've never ran that process before, or even if you don't know who to reach.
Yeah, I was going to ask, to that point, what would be the typical turnaround time if you run into a situation like that and you do need to reach someone?
It can be days to weeks if you don't know what you're doing. It could be months if you don't have the right connections and the right people to help you through it.
Okay.
Yeah, it can turn into major problems. One of the things we've established in time that we help our clients with is we have a process. We have additional consulting companies who are ex-Amazon employees who are still tied within the business. We have our direct connections through our account reps and stuff, and we help our clients a lot to overcome those things that we had overcome and ran into before. We can answer in a couple minutes. Things that may take weeks to do, we can get done in minutes, and this kind of stuff. We have the ability to help them overcome those issues where many can't, and run into that as a con when they try to go do it themselves. It's out there to deal with, and it's just part of the business operations.
Okay.
And so that's one of the challenges of that marketplace.
Yeah. Okay, so those are some of the cons, and
absolutely.
Let's look at the other side of that coin, and let's talk about the pros.
So if we flip it over, okay, and you actually build a company with the end in mind, and you structure the foundation of that company correctly, you register your brand and your product with Amazon and are approved, you get your trademark and have that approved, you unlock a whole world of marketing opportunity and traffic and sales inside of Amazon that many sellers don't fully understand. They don't fully know how to take advantage of it correctly. And so they sort of struggle through getting their sales and growth. They kind of get capped out at certain levels of sales. And we have quite a few people who come to us and are doing 3, 4, 5, even 6 figures a month, but they're stuck. They can't go any higher. They don't know how to scale any faster. They kind of get leveled up and they just can't figure out where to get to that next level. So its opportunity within Amazon is to really understand what the system wants and then give it what it wants. Having a background at IBM, one of the things I didn't mention I did was played around with latent semantic search engines and natural language queries and building knowledge management systems that learn and have artificial intelligence and what's called human machine language learning attached to them. Amazon has this big filing system inside, and it's a search engine called the keywords, and it's referred to as an A9 engine. Okay. It's just a giant learning engine. And what it wants to do is produce the best product in 30 seconds or less so the customer will buy it. And that was Jeff Bezos' policy, right? So it's about a search engine and relevancy. And when you figure out how to use that correctly, you can unlock massive amounts of traffic. We call it moving into Amazon slipstream. So it's a combination of your product and keywords and Amazon's system. And when you launch that correctly over 30, 60, 90 days, you can watch your sales just literally go vertical. You can watch your products show up on tens of thousands to millions of pages and get in front of millions of people. It solves a big problem for many people who have trouble understanding how to get people to actually see their products and buy them. That is one of the major pros about this system, is you can get a lot of traffic to see your products and convert very well. The standard marketing practice conversion is around 1% to 2% on the web. If you have a cold traffic through some kind of mechanism you deployed, Facebook ads, advertising, or something online, is usually considered to be cold traffic if they've never heard about your product before. And they'll convert when they see your product at about 1% to 2% on average.
Okay.
With Amazon, we convert at 30 to 50%.
Wow.
So our listings convert, and we have to get above 30 to 40% in order to hit page one. We have a mechanism and a process of what's called a composite listing, where we expect every time that product goes out to get between 30 to 50% conversions. So we have a huge opportunity to convert more customers at a higher price point. It's a big pro. Amazon will even pick up the marketing. They'll send out their 125 billion Prime people on their email list. I woke up one morning and a buddy called me and said, "Hey, your product's on ESPN." I said, "I didn't put my product on ESPN." He's like, "Yeah, no, I just saw it on there." Amazon had picked up the marketing. They're also one of the single largest buyers of AdWords traffic to buy that. And the most beautiful thing about Amazon, really, I think at the end of the day, is its pay-per-click campaign inside called sponsored ads and sponsored brands. Now, when you become a brand and you register and you're that real live business boy we talked about a minute ago, it unlocks a whole lot of marketing opportunities you can't get to if you do resale, wholesale arbitrage, and anything else like this. And that is actually being able to buy customer traffic away from your competitors and do it on large volume and scale. Okay. For brands and ads, I can target a page, a listing, a keyword. And in fact, Amazon has pushed most of their traffic and purchasing to that point. And a lot of the organic search results have come down and the paid traffic has come up. So it's a huge median to understand how to control. And we teach all of our people exactly how to go in and just destroy the competition. So when we go to market, I feel bad for the people we go after because I know who they are a lot of times. And we go in to buy all their traffic away from them. And in 30, 60, 90 days, we'll be taking their customers away into a new brand no one's ever heard of while ramping it very quickly past 6 figures in sales by buying up literally all of that relevant traffic inside the system.
Now, does the competitor, do they have any idea that this is happening? And is there anything that the competitor can do?
They have no idea that this is happening
until it's done.
Till about 3 to 6 months into it, and they realize, hey, why are my rankings going down? My costs are going up. My sales are going down. What is happening? They'll eventually come to the conclusion that there's another brand that's taken into the market. They'll try to usually go out and do coupon ads and discount this and race to the bottom pricing to try to boost their metrics, thinking that they need to lower their prices because people are not buying at their price point anymore. It's kind of the same thing all the time. But by that time that actually happens, we're up at the top of that and we've overtaken them.
Incredible.
Yep.
So let's talk about your ideal client.
Sure.
Outline for us who your ideal client is. And we've talked about the problems that you solve for them, right? And how you create solutions. But who is that person who would want to engage with your business? And how do we start that process? What does that look like?
I think the best way to answer it is probably just to explain to you some of the people I'm already working with and kind of who they are, like Daniel and Susan and David. These are all men and women who are usually over 30, 40 years old age. They're typically family members, are typically looking for ways to diversify income streams, multiple streams, or open up potential passive income opportunities through e-commerce or other methods. They've are experienced or in areas of things like infinite banking, or they have multi rental properties, or maybe they've got franchises, or they've got other ways they're deploying capital. Daniel, for example, was a strong network marketer with his wife, knew nothing about e-com, decided to come and be involved with us and started up an e-com high-end luxury betting line to complement his knowledge of that network marketing industry he was a part of, and has taken that to 7 figures already. But knew nothing about it, had a degree in theology and golf course management, right? And launched an e-com. The others, I've got active military who are looking at their future retirement. I've got lawyers and doctors and other people and real estate investors and brokers. and real estate agents, and they're looking for ways to grow up a brand with a passive opportunity. Because of the way we do it at Voltage, we have a plan in place for them to have our account management team take it over. So we teach them how to be the CEO. We want them to learn. Every person should really understand their business. And if someone comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm just going to run this for you at 100% passive, just let me, give me your money and I'll run," you should run away from that. If you know nothing about FBA or the business or e-com or anything, you should run from that. You should understand the logistics, the operations. You should know enough to be dangerous with the roles that need to be played in these types of business models. And so we train people up as CEOs. We train someone who's never, sold on e-com at all, how to run an e-com company and understand its roles, its logistics, its manufacturing, and of course the marketing and the market that they're going to serve. And then we give them the opportunity to make it 100% passive with our company, in which we take over the full management once that brand goes to market. So we can retire the owner before the exit of the business actually occurs. And then we can take them to our brokerage groups, our investment groups, and have that company be sold in the next 18 to 36 months. So people are typically involved in those activities. They're already successful in business in some other way, maybe want to change a little bit. A number of them have said, "You know what, I'm getting kind of tired of being in sales and management for 20 years. I want to build up an opportunity for a little bit more of a lifestyle business," which e-com can do, especially in this model. I live on 40 acres in the country with my 4 daughters. I have a lot of family things we do out here. My parents are up that way down one side of the dirt road, and my wife's parents are down that side. I got an aunt and uncle over there, and we got a lot of things we do out here on the property. But e-com gives us the opportunity to have a lifestyle business. We can travel if we want. And not have the whole thing come to an end. So there's that opportunity and flexibility in the business that people are looking for. And they're looking for ways to, in the end here, deploy capital that maybe be resting in someplace else. They want to maybe take a wealth without Wall Street approach to not just throwing it into Wall Street and letting it lock up there. They want to put those soldiers to work somewhere else in the market, and physical product inventories and virtual real estate assets are one of the ways we do that.
Fantastic. So if someone wants to get started and they're just not sure what to do next, they go to your website, they reach out, have a conversation with you to see if they're a good fit for what you do.
Yeah. Literally the simplest thing they can do is, if they're listening to this podcast and they might want to connect with me directly based on your relationship, Jay, they can just text me Business Minds, literally, to 417-413-4209. That's 417-413-4209. Just text Business Minds. We make it really simple for my high-level friends. At the other aspect, if you want more information, if you want to see a free training with myself and my portfolio's partner, Kevin Harrington, who's a former original Shark, as seen on TV Guy, and the inventor of the infomercial, sold over $5 billion in products. We co-hosted a webinar. You can watch that free webinar training from voltagedm.com. It's about a 48-minute watch. There's a no pitch. It's just full content, full immersion in the content. If you want to listen to that, again, voltagedm.com, digitalmedia.com. Take a listen to that, sign up from the site, and see a little bit more about what we're doing. And finally, if you just Google my name, it's not very long, Neil Twa, just put in TWA. I'm there with the rest of the little airline stuff that's left from the old days.
Right.
On one of my social media, you'll find my LinkedIn up there as well. And you're obviously welcome to connect with me as well. And if you happen to hear from this Business Minds Coffee, please just let me know so I can let Jay know who we're talking to.
Absolutely. And obviously we will link to all of these in the show notes. So
fantastic.
I wanted to ask you about the things that you're doing today to help you grow your own business, the things that you're doing that you see as a challenge that you're working to overcome that are going to allow you to scale even further. So what are some of those specifics that you're doing today that you maybe weren't doing in the past, but you realize now, in order for me to take my business, me and my partner, to take our business to another level, this is what we're going to have to do?
Well, we are bringing in to overcome that literally right now. We are bringing in more business managers within Voltage. And we're doing that by raising them up from our business builders group, our high-level mentoring group, a high-level coaching group of successful entrepreneurs who are now running in some capacity other people's businesses, are being brought up from inside. They may be listening to this and come in and become a business mentor with us and eventually get raised up in the business. And once they get their success, because it's so automated, they end up with having a lot of hours, literally. And so we work on a profit model with them to have them become business managers. And so one of the things we're working right now, instead of hiring outside, is we're raising these people up through the training, through their successful businesses, and then giving them the opportunity to partner with us in a performance basis to manage other business builders' accounts in a 100% passive solution. So people who are trained, know it, and are successful start running other business builders' accounts. So that's one of the things we learned to do a little differently, was to raise people up from inside of our training. And it's very cool because it's a pay-as-you-profit model that gets the business builders in, and then there's a profit model that it gives them an opportunity to run the other builders' accounts, which is pretty fun to watch because they're extremely smart and they can move very fast in what they do, and it doesn't take them a whole lot of time to do it because they learned how to do it very well. So that's one of the things we've learned that we're applying in the growth and marketing of our business, because Reed and I obviously can't continue to just run everything ourselves. That's a bad business practice. Right. We do have a software team. I don't run software and sell it anymore. We have a CEO that manages that business. Joe and him and his team and his development team and customer reps and everything manage that. We just get weekly status updates and apply our knowledge and information about selling backwards so they can help stay honed over there at Six Leaf for that software tool. So we've learned to diversify people into their roles and give them the opportunity to be empowered in that role while kind of taking a step back and letting them take the reins and just being more of a board of advisors in many of these cases to help them kind of create their own area to do what they do best.
Love it. Fantastic. So, you mentioned that your parents live fairly close to you on your property. What do your parents understand what you do?
That's a fun question. I think my mom still thinks I do computers, whatever that means exactly. I think she understands it a little bit more now than she did before. I still, every once in a while, there's like, how's business? And business is good. And that's about as far as the conversation goes. I don't think they really know what else to ask.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Yeah. So, but before I ask my final question to you, is there a message that you would like to leave our audience with?
Well, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, we all struggle with what we want to do next or how we want to use our money, or we want to balance time with friends and family and other things that are important to us. And time is always one of those big factors that people talk a lot about, of course, and even more so than money, because time is a value. Obviously, we can buy more time than we get. We can spend time wisely. And so I would just encourage everybody today to remember that, with this particular type of model, if you're looking at e-commerce and you're looking at ways to spend your time or money out in the market, e-commerce is one of those things in which you actually spend less time once everything is set up and the business actually grows. It's an interesting inverse relationship because of the economies of scale that e-commerce gives you the opportunity. You can actually spend less time when you automate it through the kind of mechanisms we deploy. Time is not a factor of that success. As I mentioned, once upon a time, we spent 80 hours trying to make a business model work. And many people feel that you have to spend more time to make it work. And it's a big mindset shift in realizing that when you target that customer avatar and when you really have that solution-oriented focus, it isn't about how much time you spend getting that business out there. The people will come to you. It'll actually take you less time to grow that business. And you can actually make a lot more money in a lot less time when you finally grasp onto that concept. It's a big one. And the final thing that gets down to that for me always is feel the fear and do it anyways. We have a lot of things that hold us back from trying to do anything. And I would rather somebody do something imperfect and witness something perfect happening along the way than to have never started at all and considered it a failure because you never took the first step. These are big things we deal with in our business people all the time.
That is so true. Beautifully said. Thank you for sharing that. So here is my final question to you. What is one of the greatest gifts that life has given you that you didn't realize at the time?
Wow. Family. Once upon a time, I was married, learned a very hard lesson in arrogance and pride. As it says, it will become something that falls before you. Let's put it like that. And I learned very poorly how to run a marriage once upon a time. And I had always wanted children and I'd always wanted a family. And as it turns out, that was not in alignment with that original marriage. God blessed me with the opportunity to meet a wonderful woman. I now have 4 children, 4 daughters who I absolutely adore and are my life's fulfillment in terms of what is of value to me in this world above all other things.
Beautiful. Thank you. So, Neil, thank you so much for spending some time with us today on Business Minds Coffee Chat and sharing of your wealth of knowledge. And I know this can get very technical at times if it's not an area that someone is familiar with, but I appreciate you not only covering it from a technical perspective, but also being able to at least speak on a language that we can all absorb the information. So thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it, and I'm grateful for you.
Thank you, Jay. I appreciate your time today. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. And for all of you, thank you so much for watching and for listening. And please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. And to enjoy more episodes and to learn how Jay Shear Business Consulting can help build a solid foundation for your service-based business, all you have to do is visit jshearbusinessconsulting.com. And until next time, keep learning and growing. Make sure you check out Neil Twa and check out the links we're going to provide in the show notes. And we will see you on the next Business Minds Coffee Chat. Take care.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear.
Jay Shear Business Consultant.
Jay Shear Business Consulting.